I'm Thomas Smith. I'm here from Do-It-Yourself Home Automation, and in this case also Debugger. We're going to start the stream in about 2 minutes, just waiting for some people to come in. So thank you for joining me. We're going to be talking about how to get your data from Google, Facebook, and Amazon and learn some of the things that these companies know about you. So we'll be starting up in about a minute. Thanks for coming along. Just hang tight for a moment while we give people some time to tune in. Okay, great. Let's get started. So again, I'm Thomas Smith from Do-It-Yourself Home Automation and from debugger.medium.com. And this is a look at a piece that I publish as part of my ongoing Tech Shortcuts for Life series. This is a series that shares every Monday, shares shortcuts and things that you can use and apply immediately to optimize your life, to streamline things, and basically to use tech to make life easier. So this is something that I thought was kind of interesting. Large tech companies gather a ton of data about us. And a lot of people don't realize, about half of people don't realize how much data these companies gather. And really, when you delve into it, it's pretty staggering. So according to Forbes, a company like Google might have about one and a half million pages equivalent of data about an average user. So they might gather about 2 gigabytes, and again, that's about a 1.5 million page Word document, an equivalent amount of data about a typical user. So they're learning a ton about you. And that includes everything from browsing history, video viewing, purchasing, location history, online searches, and much more. And all of that data reveals a ton about who you are and what you do and what you buy and what you eat. And they're only one of many companies that are gathering this data about you, including others like Facebook, Amazon. All of these companies are able to use this data to build very detailed profiles of who you are. And that might be concerning for some people, scary, but also there's something interesting because a lot of us don't have time to kind of journal or delve into who we are and take the time to do that. So one thing I thought was sort of interesting is now that there's a lot of privacy laws that allow you to access data that these companies have gathered on you, you can actually use that almost like an automatic journal that these companies have been creating for you, maybe without you even knowing about it. And in particular, you can use this data to learn some really interesting insights, either really about you or about what these companies think about you. So let's jump in here and take a look at some of the things you can learn about yourself using the data that is gathered by Google, Facebook, and Amazon. So let's jump ahead to the second one I talk about here. I think it's the easiest to access for anybody, and that's what Google knows about you. And in reality, Google knows basically everything about you. But in particular, it knows a lot about what you eat. And the reason for that is that you probably go to Google Maps if you're looking for a restaurant. Maybe you type in good Mexican place. Or if you're looking to print a recipe, you probably Google a recipe and then print it out. You probably take pictures of your food too. Maybe you put them onto Google Photos. So Google has a great sense for what you eat, what kinds of dishes you like and don't like. And you can access that data as well as a ton of other data about yourself by going to this URL, adsettings.google.com/authenticated. I'm going to pull up my own page here. And so what you get here is this breakdown of all of this information about you. And I think probably by design, this page is really like an information overload. So it's kind of listing a bunch of the things that you like and do and are, like brands that they think that you follow and things you've clicked on, maybe things that they'd like to pitch to you that you've never heard of before. I'm looking at my own list of brands here, and some of them I recognize, some of them I've never heard of before. But these are companies that they think you're somehow connected to or would be interested in. They also know basic demographics about you, like your general age range and gender. And if you scroll through here, you can find a bunch of other really specific things like California. Yes, I live in California. They know that. Again, it's so hard to find specifics because they kind of just throw all of your data at you, maybe so that it is a little bit confusing or a little bit hard. But you can see here, it says that I'm a homeowner, so they know that kind of data. It says the industry, let's see, the industry that I'm in, technology and financial. Not in the financial industry, but technology industry is accurate. So there's a ton of information that they've learned. And you can scroll through here and start to see, education, bachelor's degree. Yes, that's correct. And a lot of these interests they have identified are actually things I'm interested in. So computer components, computer peripherals, construction and power tools, definitely. Cycling, not so much. Digital cameras, yes. Dogs, yes. So this is sort of like a breakdown of who you are according to all of your search habits and location information and all the data that Google has gathered and crunched about you. And again, you can access your own page if you have a Google account just by going to that URL. But in particular, if you go into this, you can figure out a lot of information about what you eat. And as I share in the piece, the best way to do that is to look at the little icons that Google provides for you in this interface. So there's all these little pretty icons that indicate different things, but I noticed that Google seems to recycle a couple of icons in order to tell you about the foods that you like. And these are the ones here, this little burger, this little pot, a little bowl with some steam, and these two crossed forks. So if you go through this page and kind of scan for those particular icons, you can see all the food-related entries and start to pull those out from this sort of sea of general things. So some specifics, Chinese cuisine. Yeah, I definitely do like Chinese cuisine. I just recently have had a lot of Chinese cuisine, so they may be highlighting that as an interest. Coffee and tea, absolutely. I have coffee every day. So they probably see that in purchasing habits and searching habits and the fact that I go to Starbucks and that kind of thing. And again, I'm looking for these particular little icons. So let's keep scrolling through here, see what else we can find. Food, yeah, I mean, everyone's interested in food, but food and grocery retailers, and particularly gourmet and specialty foods, definitely an interest. Food delivery, I've written before about how I use DoorDash a lot. So I think, you can start to see the patterns of particular cuisines, particular types of food that you might enjoy eating that Google has pulled out of here. And I think it's interesting to see, in addition to just basic demographic information and interests, the really random things that they start to highlight. And this is something you can go back to. Restaurants, for example, this is something you can go back to over time, and things will update and change. So I noticed when I wrote the piece about a week ago that vegan foods was one of the things that highlighted for me. That's no longer in here right now. And again, those will change over time. But I wondered, why vegan foods? Because I'm definitely not a vegan. And then I realized that I tend to research and also to eat a lot of these sort of high-tech engineered meats, like Impossible Burgers and Impossible Chorizo and Mrs. Goldfarb's Reuben, which if you've never tried it, it's an artificial meat Reuben that's actually really good. And I realized, from searching for those, I actually do kind of have an interest in vegan food, even if I'm not a vegan. And that was an interesting little tidbit to see that Google pulled out about me, something I hadn't even thought about for myself. Maybe I follow a plant-based lunch with a steak dinner, but I do have an interest in these Impossible Burgers and other kind of vegan foods. So they had pulled that out. Those are the kinds of really kind of interesting tidbits you can learn about yourself by delving into all this data that these big companies collect. So go and check it out. If there's things that you don't want to have in there that are inaccurate, you can also switch off any of these so that you can say, oh, I'm not actually interested in used vehicles, for example. And no longer see ads related to it, and no longer see that kind of biasing your search history. So this is a two-way street. You can see the data. You can also edit the data and tell Google what they got right and what they got wrong. So that's the Google piece. And again, most big companies now have a way to access data like that. Google just makes it super easy, so that's where I wanted to start. But this is one of my favorites from Facebook. You can download all of your Facebook data, including every photo you've ever posted, every chat you've ever had on the platform, just a huge amount of data. And the way to do that is to go to facebook.com/DYI. And I'm not going to go there right now on this stream because I don't want to show all of my Facebook data, but you can go there and select different categories of data that you want to download. And maybe you enjoy looking back at all of your photos or just having a backup of that. But the one I think is really hilarious and interesting is that they actually have a flag in your data that says whether you're an adult or not. And it's not based on age, it's based on what they call your friend peer group. So basically who you hang out with and talk to on Facebook, and probably other factors that they're not sharing. So there's literally a flag in there that says either you are an adult or you aren't an adult. And the wording exactly is either you've established adult life or you are starting adult life. And you can access this, again, go to facebook.com/DYI, and then put in these 3 categories: ads, businesses, and about you. Press create file, and you'll get a download link in about a couple of hours usually. You get a download link with all of the data that Facebook is going to give you there. And you can download it, unzip it, and this is a breakdown of what this looks like if you select everything. But where we want to go is into this About You section, and then you're going to pull up friendpeergroup.html. And this will give you your adult status. And you can see that Facebook feels that I am an established adult. I've established adult life. And that's probably good since I have kids and a house and I'm married. So they've pulled that out. But you can go in and see if they think you're an adult. Maybe you've established adult life. Maybe you're just starting it. The thing I like about this is, again, it's not tied to age. It's tied to some nebulous factor that Facebook is pulling out of people you hang out with, the data that you make available to them. And I also love that it's a binary. You either are an adult or you're not. And as I shared in the piece, it makes me wonder, is there a way to change your status? Like if you listen to too much Kid Rock or something, will they take away your adult status? And there's no kind of gradients there of you've established adult life in some ways, but you play too much Fortnite, so we're not going to call you an established adult. It's literally a binary. And again, you can go in and see what Facebook thinks of you. Have you successfully become an adult, or are you still working on the process of adulting? And the final one I want to look at is Amazon. And Amazon, I think, is really interesting because if you're like me, you probably buy all of your stuff on Amazon and give most of your money to Jeff Bezos. So they have a ton of information, not just about what you look for, but what you actually put money towards. And that's usually a pretty good indicator of the stuff that you care about. Buying habits are usually one of the richest data sources in terms of understanding people. So to get your data from Amazon, it's a little bit more tricky than the other platforms, but you go to this URL. Again, I'm not going to do it because I don't want to show my own Amazon data there in all of its entirety. But you go there, you can select categories. I selected advertising from the drop-down and then press submit request. Now you'll get an email from them confirming that it's really you, and then it'll take a few days for them to actually give you your data, which is a little bit annoying. They probably can generate it more quickly, but maybe they don't want to hand it over so easily. But if you do everything right with that, you'll get an email in a few days saying that your data is ready. Download it, unzip it. You'll find that we've got a bunch of zip files. A bunch of them may be blank, so keep looking until you find one that isn't. And then what you're looking for is this file, advertising.amazonaudiences.csv. And again, there might be a few of those in your data, so open a bunch of them, check them out, keep looking until you find one that actually has stuff in it. And when you do, this is what it'll look like. So this is my own copy here. And it breaks down the Amazon audiences you're included in. And so that's basically the things that they believe you care about or do or purchase. And there's a bunch of different categories within this. So what I noticed here in the way this data is set up is that you get a general category and then a colon and then a more specific category. And then in some cases, another colon with an even more specific category. So in market, I assume are the things that they think you're interested in buying, probably based on your search habits and your previous purchases. So you can look through this and see some of the things that they think I want to buy. Some of these are accurate, some of them probably not. Pet supplies, sure. Sporting goods, yeah. I'm trying to buy a barbell set, I've not been able to. Home and kitchen, always like that. Industrial and scientific, yeah, I'm buying a lot of random industrial kinds of things for work. And then it looks at books and magazines as a breakdown here. So it's correctly figured out that I like reference books, I like health and fitness books, things about crafts and hobbies. Not as much into fiction, but they do highlight that. And then some things in here are probably guesses that they're making that aren't exactly accurate. Like it has musical instruments, probably because I purchased a lot of microphones for doing things like this live stream. So they may think I'm a musician, whereas in reality, I'm buying those kinds of things for other purposes. But you can see they have this really detailed breakdown of all of these different areas where I'm in the market for these products. It also breaks down lifestyle, just general things that they've learned about you. And again, the most specific ones I think are the ones with 3 different sections. So different colons. So lifestyle, books and magazines, art and photography, yes, definitely an interest of mine. Cookbooks, food and wine, parenting and families. So Amazon definitely has my number here. And then if you look at some of these other things, again, we see pet supplies coming out again. Been looking for a GPS collar for my dogs, so definitely see that. And then this one I think is interesting. They look at video entertainment. What things do you like to watch? And comedy, definitely, action, sports. I was just watching the Super Bowl, and so I think they're pulling a lot of these out. And then definitely other things like DIY and tools, business, electronics. That's a pretty good description of me in a nutshell in a lot of ways. So this is really fascinating data, and you kind of get your whole life broken down in my case, about 60 entries in terms of, here are the things that you like and care about. And you can get your own data here, see what Amazon thinks you like and what some of your favorite things and interests are. And again, particularly look at ones where they break it down into these 3 different sections and look at the most specific section. Because in my experience, these are the things that are most reflective of reality. Definitely arts and photography, food and cooking for me, parenting, comedy shows. These are all things that where they've gotten it, pretty accurate here. So that's a look at 3 different places where you can get this really detailed data about yourself from these 3 big companies. And as you saw, for a company like Google, it's so simple that you can literally just go to that URL. In fact, I'll drop it into the chat here, and you can go there right now and see what Google knows about you. And I should say this is live, so I see several people are tuned in on YouTube and elsewhere. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions about my piece. I'll also drop in a link to the piece if you want to go and read it. And why is this stuff important? I think it's interesting for one thing. A lot of people don't have the time to do a formal journaling process, and this is almost a way to keep a journal about yourself and your interests over time without having to actually set aside the time to go in and do that every day, because as I shared in the piece, these big tech companies in many cases are kind of doing that for you. So it's a way to learn about yourself and, like the vegan food interests, to learn something that you probably wouldn't have immediately thought of about yourself too. And I was hoping there'd be more, random tidbits that I had never thought of. Like I said, I hope Amazon would find that I had a penchant for curling or some, musical talent I wasn't aware of. But mostly it's just a very accurate reflection of the stuff that I buy and care about. So just interesting to know that. And, also I think there's a value in this of just being aware of what data these companies are gathering about you. Because this data really controls, to a large extent, what you see when you search on Google. If they know that you have a particular interest, or they think that you have a particular interest, that's going to, in many cases, bias the search results that you receive on that platform. It'll bias also the ads that you're shown. And in the case of a platform like Facebook, it may even bias the information that they're presenting to you. Certainly with a company like Amazon, it's going to bias the kinds of products they're going to show you and the things that you may end up spending your money on. So this definitely has an impact on your life, and it has an impact on the access to information that you have. And so you really want to know what these companies know about you, and in many cases you probably want to make sure that it's accurate and possibly correct it if it's not. So I shared in the piece, according to Deloitte, as of 2017, only about half of people realize that big companies have been gathering data and building these detailed profiles of them. And the other half were, in Deloitte's words, surprised or completely unaware of the scale and breadth of the data being gathered. So, don't let that be you. Go and find out what these companies know about you. You may learn something fascinating, as I did. It's just interesting to see this data broken down, but also you may see things that are wrong or things that you can just be aware of, maybe influencing the data you're shown or the information that you're seeing when you see a Google ad. And I think that knowledge is helpful in terms of self-knowledge, and it's also helpful in terms of just being a more informed consumer and a more informed user of these services. So if you enjoyed this piece, follow me here on YouTube, subscribe to me here, and this recording will be available in the piece and also here on my channel after the fact. Go to debugger.medium.com, follow Debugger, follow me at medium.com/@TomSmith585. If you have any questions about this while we're live here, feel free to ask them now in the chat. And if you wanted to ask me any questions after the fact, find me on Twitter at TomSmith585. Send a DM, tweet at me, share what you found about yourself. I'd love to see what you found, if there's something interesting or surprising that you learned by accessing your data from these companies. Did Google find something that you weren't aware of about yourself that you want to share? Tweet that at me, and I'd love to hear about it. Thanks so much for tuning in, and good luck.